Hey everybody, it's Joshua, and today I want to start a conversation about where do you like to get your comic books, at an LCS or at a non-LCS? Alright, so let me start off with a little story. The idea for this video goes all the way back to Free Comic Book Day. I was out with my family, and my daughter actually had a soccer tournament that weekend. We were in Greensboro, North Carolina, but it was also Free Comic Book Day, which I wanted to go to, but I didn't want to miss anything important with my family. So once everything with our family had wrapped up, I had seen advertisements. There was a comic shop I'd never been to in Greensboro, and they had a big billboard advertising for Free Comic Book Day and everything. So I figured I'd go by there and check it out. So after we were done with the soccer tournament, I went down to this local comic shop. And they only had a handful of the Free Comic Book Day giveaways left, so I got my little pack of comic books there, and I proceeded to walk around the rest of the store. So I looked into their bins. Everybody there was really friendly, but there just weren't any books that interested me, and I'm trying to really target, really just what I want as far as picking up from my collection, and then trying to get a little bit more into buying low and flipping with comics that other people might be interested in. So I walked through the store. There was no, bargain bin, anything. They had kind of a modern back issue section up at the front, and then in the back there was an older back issue section. That inventory was so packed in you couldn't hardly even look through the books. And you ever been at a box where you pull one up and you're worried that as you push it down you're gonna break the spine just trying to get it back in the box? That's how it felt like. So it wasn't a whole lot of perusing to do. I walked by, I looked at their wall books, and everything just seemed overpriced. Whether it was something that I might want for myself or for flipping, there's definitely going to be no flipping going on with anything in there. So I walked out with my little stack of Free Comic Book Day books, a little bit disappointed. Now, right across the street from that comic shop is a McKay's used bookstore. I've talked about McKay's before. It is a used bookstore that also sells other kinds of media, so movies, records, and also comic books. And other things like, figurines and toys and Pokemon and Magic cards, all that type of stuff is there. It's a used media store, but it's McKay's. So I drove from the comic shop, a little bummed that I didn't find anything cool, over to McKay's, and I started looking through their stuff. And I had a really good time digging through their bins. I had talked to another guy who was there doing the same thing, and found out what he was looking for, and if I saw it, I'd hand it over to him, and just had a pleasant exchange. And I found some stuff that was low price, but that I wanted, fair low price. And then I found some other things that were in there, 50 cent to $1 bins that was very flippable, or something that I would want to keep for myself. So that was a really nice run into a non-LCS. And that was the birth of this idea, was to start a conversation with anyone who's watching these videos on YouTube about comic books, to say, what's your preferred space? Do you like to go to a LCS, or do you like to go to a non-LCS? And I should probably take a minute to define what I'm going to talk about in this video and share. A local comic shop, to me, is a place that either, some combination of comics are their primary business. If the name of the store has comics in it, that's probably an LCS. And then also, do they sell a significant number of new comics? I can think of a store in Clayton, North Carolina called Pauper's. It's a used bookstore, and the large majority of their business is used books. They also have some other media like movies and music. And then comics is a very small part, but they do sell new comic books, but not very many. It's a very, very small volume. I'm not even sure how they work that out. But that's been a good place to go, and I would probably consider that a non-LCS, as opposed to the local comic shop near where I live. It's about 20 minutes away. That is definitely a comic shop. They sell mostly comics and comic-related things, but comic books are their main business. They have a very large wall of new books. So since Free Comic Book Day, I've kind of been compiling together the different things that I bought. This is a box of books that I got at what I would consider to be a local comic shop. Although I'll make a point that a good chunk of these are from a dollar bin of a store called Blue Ox Games in Greenville, North Carolina. And Blue Ox's primary business is tabletop games. Whether it's family games or Dungeons and Dragons or Magic, Pokemon, all that type of stuff. That's their main business. But they do have a significant amount of new comic books. If you wanted to get any of the major new comic book titles, you could get them there. So I'm putting that in the LCS bin here. There's another spot that I went to that I'll show a couple from there. It's Needless Toys in Greenville, North Carolina. That is also a toy shop, but they also sell a large number of new comics, one of which I bought, which is in here. There's a third store in Greenville, and you're catching a a bit of a theme here, that I've done a significant amount of my comic buying recently outside of where I live. I live in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, and a huge chunk of this is actually from around Greenville. But that third one is a true LCS. Comics are their primary business. So the stuff from this box, this is the non-LCS box. So anywhere that I've found things in a physical brick and mortar, whether it's coming from Ollie's Packs, thrift stores, antique shops, flea markets, yard sales, any of those type of places, it's not a comic shop, but you can find comics there. That's this stack. And so I'm going to go through these, we're going to compare them, and see what you think. What I'm not going to talk about are online sales outlets. So anything like buying from online comic outlets or eBay, that's not what I'm talking about today. Not that you can't, and I'd certainly love to hear in comments where you like to buy, but I just want to show where I've been getting and what I think about the LCS versus non-LCS, and then I would love to have a conversation in the comments. I would love to respond, say, where do you buy your comics, and what do you think I did? Two things. Do you think I did better at an LCS or a non-LCS? And then where do you like to buy your comics? Okay, let's do the LCS first. Now, I will say a lot of these came from a dollar bin, like I mentioned, and so I'm hoping to flip these at an upcoming yard sale. We have a big yard sale, but I want to have all these comics that I've got ready to go to see if I can sell some people face to face, meet some folks in the area who are interested in comic books. But this one right here, I grabbed these because I was thinking this was Batman #1 from Rebirth. It is not. It is Rebirth Batman #1. So it's kind of some context to that storyline. But it is not the first appearance of Gotham and Gotham Girl like I was hoping it would be. So unfortunate. That's not the pickup that I was hoping for. I did get some Rebirth stuff, not much. And in that bin there was a ton. And I know that Rebirth is not a huge flipper, but there's some cool stuff. So I grabbed these Harley Quinn #1s. I got 2 of those. And I also got a couple of these Bill Sienkiewicz variants of Harley Quinn #1. Those are pretty cool. I got a Suicide Squad #2. It was a minor first appearance here. Just get a stat going. Teen Titans #1. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps #1. I got a 0 Hour Crisis in Time #1. So a minor first appearance. This was a one-shot Robin, Nature's Bride. Now these are neat. They had a handful of comics from that first run of Booster Gold, but I just grabbed a couple that had some key significance. So this is #6, the origin of Booster Gold. Not in amazing condition, but pretty cool. And then this is #13, the first appearance of Gold Star. Let's put that up. And then these I had kind of a consecutive run of Flash comics. So there's 301, 302, 303, and 304. This is the first appearance of Colonel Computron. And then there was this Flash Annual #1. And I thought these were pretty cool. They were for the yard sale, but to try to generate some interest and show some of my stuff. So this one was for me, because these Crisis on Infinite Earths, so far for me, are a little hard to find, but I was able to pick up a dollar reprint, the dollar bin, with this really great cover on it. So there's one for me. So Superman 49, this was neat. It's a Neil Adams variant. Random indie book, Laughing Gas, with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles parody. This whole stack came from Blue Ox Games in Greenville, North Carolina. Along with these next few, here's a neat one. It's a ROM. This is one of the IDW, when they started a new ROM series, but it's a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. So it's a 1 in 3,000, or there are 3,000 of these. So I thought it was pretty neat. I mean, this new ROM stuff's not super valuable, but that's not a book you're just going to see every day. This was neat, and I was actually surprised. I'd never heard of these guys. This Quantum and Woody #1, and the variant cover of Quantum and Woody. So this showed some value on Key Collector. That's what I use when I'm like kind of pushing through a bin. I'll use Key Collector to determine if something looks like it's got any significance or not, or a quick look. It's probably not a reliable, detailed version of the value, but at least a quick idea of whether it's valuable. So Quantum and Woody #1, variant #1, and #2. I read them. They're definitely tongue-in-cheek kind of buddy cop style superhero stuff. Pretty fun. This was neat. It's a Wizard sketchbook, Cliffhanger. It's got some early sketches of these characters, I believe related to Danger Girl and some other ones, some J. Scott Campbell, some Joe Madeira. Neat stuff. Cool art. Oh, I've run out of space. That's okay. Grabbed an Uncanny Avengers #1. There's some minor key significance here. Trying to move quickly instead of say who's in everything. Clandestine #2, first full appearance of Adam Destin. Same dollar bin, still working here. It's just an old Master of Kung Fu, so #39. You know, a good grade pickup. Oh yeah, I read through this, like the second appearance of the cat, which, yeah, again, minor, but it's a neat old book, and it was a good read. Here's a cool one. Uncanny X-Men 542. This one, Colossus gains the Juggernaut powers. Neat book. Nice Greg Land cover. I like that one. Let's switch these. Boom. There we go. Some more. Same dollar bin. X-Men 92 #1. First appearance of Alpha Red. This one's pretty beat up, but old X-Men's neat. X-Force. I forgot what number this is. Yeah, number 51. Where Boom Boom changes their name to Meltdown. I was a big fan of that early X-Force run, so Boom Boom's a neat character for me. Also the first appearance of Risk. Death of X #1. Extraordinary X-Men #1. Fantastic Four Unlimited #1. There's a minor Black Panther related key significance here. Speedball #1. I was also a new Warriors fan from Mark Bagley's run, and so Speedball #1. That's pretty neat. All right, Marvel Comics presents #18. This is the time that first time that She-Hulk breaks the fourth wall. It's a neat book. Whether you like the She-Hulk show or not, whatever. it's a cool book. All right, Peter Parker Spider-Man Annual #1. This was a variant cover. This, I was kind of surprised. It's an Amazing Fantasy 1000. I did not have one of these, so that was a cool pickup for myself. Same dollar bin, Blue Ox Comics. I grabbed this one. It's no key significance, but they had a lot of old Kazar. And this one's where Shayna took over the cover, but I really like that crazy cover. So that was a pickup. Here's one that's got some key significance. So it's #1 of the first run of Squadron Supreme. Alright. And then the last one out of that Blue Ox dollar bin. This is Star Wars Cassian and K2 from Rogue One. The Pepe Larraz variant. So, all of that at what I would consider an LCS, even though they are primarily a games store, they do sell a whole lot of new books, and that could be used as your LCS. Now, let's move this Blue Ox stack back over here. Alright, the next one that we go through is another shop in Greenville called Nostalgia Newsstand. They just moved locations recently. Their new shop is really great. So, front of the shop is kind of new books, priced books, and then they've got a section in the back that is a large dollar section. So I went through their dollar section and grabbed some things too. Now, this is weird. I learned a while back ago with New Universe that you just kind of keep flipping. But I also learned even more recently that Mark Bagley really got going for New Universe, or through New Universe for Marvel. So these are Bagley's first published art from Marvel here in Night Mask. So I grabbed that one. That one's for me. Like I said, definitely a Bagley fan. This is a flip book. I was able to clean it up pretty well. It's got a little staining, but Secret Warriors #6, when Madame Hydra was revealed to be the Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine. Maybe there will be some significance of that with the Thunderbolts movie. I already have a copy of it for myself, so that one's a flipper. Here's another one from me. X-Men Gold #30. This is the marriage of Gambit and Rogue. I like marriage covers. I think they're fun. Alright, another thing that I'm into in my collecting are Art Germ covers. I really like Art Germ style. I couldn't believe I found this one in the dollar section. So this is Captain Marvel #34 with the Art Germ variant. And it's also the first cameo of the Binary Force separating from Carol Danvers. I really liked the binary form of Miss Marvel. So that's neat, but I bought it for the Art Germ cover. I grabbed a Ravage #1 from Nostalgia Newsstand, so all this was in their dollar bin. I used to have the first few Ravages. I collected 2099 hard when it first came out. And this one, I didn't even know back then that this was a Stan Lee creation. I didn't collect much Ravage, but I sold it years ago in a yard sale, so that's a pickup to kind of replace. And then Spider-Man Life Story #6. I already have #1 and #2, so now I've picked up #6. I'm only missing a few more. Alright. A couple more from Nostalgia Newsstand. Amazing Spider-Man #4. This has a little controversy inside of it. I'll let you look that up on the internet. And also the first appearance of the Spider-Bot. kind of recasting the Tri-Sentinel. And then Amazing Spider-Man 27 from the same run. His first full appearance of the all-female Sinister Six. Oh man. No, I'm not done. This is the last one that I picked up back there in the Nostalgia Newsstand dollars. And the guy that checked me out, I think, was a bit surprised that it was back there. So this is Frank Miller's Ronin Book 3. So now I'll be on the hunt to try to fill out the other books in this series. Alright, that was it for Nostalgia Newsstand. Here's a couple from a different place. Let's stick with Greenville with these two. So this is the only new comic book in the pile that I bought recently. This was at Nostalgia Newsstand. I was interested in this. I'm definitely a fan of Liefeld's work. whether you like him or not. I like Rob Liefeld. And, you know, Deadpool Batter Blood came out. There's the first cameo of, what's her name? I'll put it down in the thing. The lady version of Shatterstar. So that was neat, and I looked at it, and he actually had this Liefeld variant, which is weird, but Liefeld would do a variant of a Liefeld book where Liefeld already did the cover A, but I actually like this one a little bit better. So I picked that one up at Needless Toys. That's the only one that I bought new in this whole stack. And Needless does have a great back room with lots of stuff in it, but you got to go through it and have in your mind, he's going to price it when you take the book up to the front, whoever's working there that day. And so we got to look at the condition and have in mind, do I want to pay what's going to be the graded on the spot fair market value? So you may or may not get a great deal on something. I grabbed it. This one, Liefeld early X-Force, like I mentioned, X-Force number 8. It's the first full appearance of the real Domino, not Copycat. And it's also a newsstand, which is very cool. I already had a copy of this, but that one was a pickup. I'll see which one is best and sell the other one. Okay, that's it for Needless. That's it for Greenville LCSs. All right, a couple pickups now from an LCS in Raleigh. There is a store that we go up to up there that's not a comic store. I'll talk about that again in a minute, but there isn't a comic store just a couple doors down, and recently they started having a $2 bin, which is pretty great. So I went in there recently, looked at it, and checked out their $2 bin, and I grabbed this copy, this Captain America with Sin on the cover. In her form that, who knows, if she shows up in this Captain America movie, I think she's probably going to look more like this rather than her first iteration in older Captain America. And I got a couple X-Men annuals that I did not have. So I got number 7 and number 8. Nothing mind-blowing here, but in a $2 bin, filling out some stuff that I wanted, that's pretty great. So my older X-Men annual stack is getting a little better. All right, that is it for the LCSs. Now let's switch over and let's see what I've gotten over the same time period at non-LCSs. Okay, so now we're going to go over the things that I've gotten at the non-LCSs. So thrift stores, Ollie's, if you bought Walmart packs, that would be a non-LCS, antique shops, yard sales, all that type of stuff. Here we go. We'll do a couple from Ollie's packs. These two came in the same pack. So remember, with Ollie's, there's a couple different configurations of the packs. There's packs with older books that have 5 books in them, and if you're careful, you can just barely separate the spines so that you can see an idea of what you've got on the inside. Then there's other ones that are shrink wrapped real tight that have 10 books. Those, unless you can read the spine, you have no idea what's in the middle. So when I go, I usually look at the older ones that are a little more loose, try to sneak a peek, and I was able to sneak a peek at these. They were both on the interior, I believe. So, the Saga of Crystar, the Crystal Warrior, number 1. Bunch of first appearances in there, nobody cares about, but that's a pretty sweet cover. So, pretty silly there. And then, there was this one, Dragonlance number 1. So a Dungeons and Dragons related book. This is the first Dragonlance. I thought that was pretty neat. Unfortunately, there is some staining on this book, but all the paper's intact, so that's at least good. Now, while I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons, I mentioned that comic shop that was just a few doors down from another place we go in Raleigh. So the other place that we go is a bookstore. It is a educational, like, by academic curricula type of homeschool store, and they do a ton of consignment. So when they get stuff in that they're not going to sell in the store, there's just like a big old row of boxes that they stick outside that's just free. And so we were looking in those free bins before we went in. And the point where I was like, oh, can we go? My wife finds these. Dragonlance Saga graphic novels. 1, 2, and 3 for free, sitting out there in those bins. That is awesome. Now, since they were free, they got marked. There is some water staining. You can see water staining in here, but you can't beat free. And since I already have this one, my understanding is that these books these graphic novels then feed into this comic book series. So that'll be a nice pile. We'll see if I can move all these together at the upcoming yard sale. Free! Okay, now another place that I've talked about before, McKay's. So I referenced that in my intro story, I had gone on one side of the street, local comic shop, Greensboro, North Carolina. Didn't really find anything for me, and some of the things I found, there was a book that I had bought in an Ollie's pack recently, so I was very familiar with the FMV, and they were way over it. So I just kind of didn't try to buy anything there. Went across the street to the McKay's in Greensboro, North Carolina, and here's what I grabbed that day. There's a few books out of their cheap section. I grabbed a Peach Momoko variant of Marauders number 8, which just had a really cool cover. Now these books here are all, 50 cents or less, or excuse me, $1 or 50 cents. So Dark Avengers number 13, I believe there is some key significance here. Haha, this was cool. It was in the poly bag, but the poly bag was ripped, so I went ahead and took that off. This is a Star Wars number 1 variant. It's the Loot Crate exclusive variant of Star Wars number 1. This book, and I kept the poly bag as evidence, this book was 50 cents. 50 cents for a Star Wars 1 from the really nice modern Marvel run. And an exclusive variant. That's awesome. Last one here. This one was 90 cents. This is Mighty Avengers number 1, which is also a key. So digging through that bottom bin of 50 cents to $1. Now here's part of the trick with McKay's. When you're digging through their bins, if anyone is in North Carolina or Tennessee where there is a McKay's, those $1 or less bins, they stick this label on whatever it is. So most of the comics down there do not have a poly bag. So they'll slap this sucker right on the comic. I have found that these labels come off really well if you're careful and slow. So I don't hesitate to buy a book from that section because I know I can remove that. That is not true of a lot of price labels, but for these that McKay's uses, thankfully, they come off. All right, so Dungeons and Dragons, Silly Crystar Fantasy, Crystar, and a handful of cool stuff from McKay's. Oh, I'm not even done with McKay's yet. I grabbed a few books there that I paid for what I thought was a fair value for. I actually bought this Captain Marvel 34 from McKay's for $3.50 because I like art journal covers. So to me, it was worth the $3.50. And then later on, to find one in a $1 bin, same thing. Of course, pick it up. I grabbed this. This, I believe, is an Alex Ross variant of Non-Stop Spider-Man number 1. So I paid $5.75 for that. And that's fine. I thought it was a great comic book cover. And I have a Non-Stop Spider-Man number 2 that I got in an Ollie's pack. So I got a little bit of thing going on. I was happy with that. I also like this really silliness of J. Jonah Jameson having all these great Spider-Man pictures, but what's he looking at? The bikini chick. Okay. JJ's messed up. We all know. JJJ. This one was an Art Germ variant. Amazing Mary Jane number 1. So again, I like Art Germ, so to me it was worth the $5.25 grabbing that day, particularly considering what I was getting out of their $1.50 bins. And then I also grabbed one of these Donny Cates. They had a Donny Cates Venom number 1. $4.95. That's great. That was a really cool run, leading up to King in Black, I believe. So you look at this stack, and it's looking pretty good. I was very happy with these non-LCS purchases. Now let's go back to Greenville. In that trip, not that long ago, I went to the LCSs because I like those stores. But I also went on a Saturday down to a flea market. I drove around and I found a neat little place that was not a flea market and not an antique store. It was more of an antique store, but it was like, I found it by accident wandering around after stopping at a yard sale, and it just looked like this really dumpy building, but it said, you know, flea market antiques, and so I went in and checked it out. Inside of there, I asked if they had comics. He pointed me to them, and they were priced wrong in every direction, because generally every comic book that he had was like $9, and then there were a few that were marked $5, and he said he'd work with me on the price. So I went through them. It was mostly Captain America, but it was around, you know, mostly $300 to $350 in that space, and there's a lot of good keys in there. So I spent the time flipping through those books, on the edge of my T-Mobile network strength inside of this store in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Ayden, North Carolina, trying to figure out which books I should grab, because I did not have enough cash for all of them, and I wasn't about to pay no $9 for a $1 book, but I did find some that were worth it in this Captain America run. Saved the best for last there. I ended up getting 5 books, and some of them are, you know, Cap and Winter Soldier related keys, and so they've probably cooled off, but I think I did good. At the end of everything, I bought 5 books from him for $30, so $6 a book. And I was pretty happy with it. They were a little dirty. I've cleaned them up, but here's the first one. Captain America 312. First appearance of Flag Smasher. Value has definitely gone down on this book, but not bad. Captain America 341. His first appearance of Battlestar, so Lamar Hoskins taking the Battlestar name. Also Rock Python, left winger, right winger, Coach Whip, and Boomslang. This is one of the bigger ones. Unfortunately, there's a few spine ticks in it, but Captain America 354. First appearance and cover of John Walker as U.S. Agent, which was the name that he stuck with for a long time, and I think that's the name that we're going to see in Thunderbolts. Not to mention, it's kind of a crazy cover. I like it. I did get one, so, you know, I averaged that price out. This one was marked lower, but X-Men #1 reprint. So this is Amazing Adventures #1, and it's a reprint of X-Men #1. I did not have a reprint of this currently. I used to have a Marvel Masterpieces one with like the silver around the edge. But this one is an old reprint from the late 70s, and I thought that was great. So that is for me, for sure. And then the last one that I picked up there is Captain America 241. And this is the first battle between Cap and the Punisher. Cap and the Punisher do not like each other. They are definitely opposite ends of the moral spectrum on how to deal with fighting crime. But that was a great book. So inside that flea market, I left a whole lot of his books that were marked $9 behind, and I grabbed the ones that I felt were underpriced. So happy with that. Then on the way home from that trip, I was driving back from Ayden, and I stopped at a flea market that my mother-in-law had suggested. Or flea market, excuse me. It's a thrift store that's run kind of like an antique shop where there's multiple vendors inside the store. And I was able to find a pile of comic books. There, all the comics were $4. So again, kind of a lazy approach to pricing. But I only grabbed one out of that stack. Most of those books should have been priced $1 or $2. And I definitely wasn't about to take a loss on something So this one was for me. It's Superman 53 with this excellent Truth, Justice, and the American Way cover. So super patriotic, awesome Superman cover here. And the guy said, oh, everything from that booth is 20% off. And then because he didn't want to deal with the change, he took it on down. And I paid $3 for this book. So very happy with that. So now we're looking at it. That is the Non-LCS stack. So there you go. That's my whole pile that I pulled from the last couple months since Free Comic Book Day, and it's comparing LCS, non-LCS. I would love to know what you think. Did I do better in LCS, or did I do better not in a comic shop? In this run, I'll say, I'll be dead honest, I'm more excited about the books that I got from the non-comic shops than I am for the comic shops. I will say that I'm a little biased because where I live, in the area relative to Raleigh, where my house is, there's just not a great comic shop that checks all the boxes that I'm looking for when I go in. The next closest one, they're friendly, they have a lot of great new books, and they have a large inventory of old books, but you can't go in there looking for a deal just because that's just not how they run that store. And I'm not trying to throw shade at them, it's just not like my favorite flavor of shop. I love a place that's got a $1 bin or a $2 bin or something like that where you can actually go treasure hunting, and to me that's one of the most fun things. So even though you might hit a place that where all the comics are the same price and they're all overpriced except for these few and you gotta go digging for it, I really like the non-comic shop. Another thing with my stuff, like I said, my area I don't feel like is all that strong in comics. I gotta go out a little bit. Go to Greenville, go to Greensboro or Winston-Salem, and that seems to be where I'll find more of my stuff. And in those spaces, there's some really nice non-LCSs. But I want to hear from you. I want to see those comments, and I'm looking forward to replying to them and having some conversations on where do you buy your comics, particularly in ways where you have to face-to-face with somebody. So please let me know if you liked this video. This one was meant to be more of a conversation starter, so let's get those conversations going. But I hope that you're able to get out, do the hobby that you enjoy, whether it's comic books, fishing, used books, crafts, whatever. Get out there and do it. Meet some new people, make some new friends, and have a great day. I'll talk to y'all next time. Bye.